this is the Hope Pro5 hub versus the DT Swiss 350 hub. Both of these hubs just released on the market and now in shops. Now, the Pro5, we actually did a whole video of this. This is Sally's new wheel, by the way. Completely tearing it down, showing you all the intricate details. I'll link it at the end of the video, so don't click away just yet. But the 350 hub has just arrived. This is the brand spanking new, the straight pull one. They've been waiting for this for a little while to get the straight pull ones through. And now we've got this opportunity of doing a sort of a versus, if you like. Now, in the teardown video, we showed you all the details. So if you remember, this is a pull type system. So there's a ratchet ring around here, and attached to the three have these little ratchets that come up. And on the DT Swiss, I'll show you in a second, is a different type of ratchet where you have two plates with teeth in it that engage against each other. Now, the new Hope Pro5 is boasting 108 points of engagement, and that is the ring on the outside has 54 teeth in it, using 6 pulls, and any one time, any click, there's going to be 3 of those pulls engaged into that ratchet. So that's better than the last one, which I think was 2, and there's a way of improving that as well. There's some really popular videos about how to change that, but they've already done that job for you. The DT Swiss, the 350, is still using the older internals. So this has 36 points of engagement, which 36 on a 360-degree circle gives you 10 degrees between those clicks. Whereas this has given us about 3.3 degrees of rotation between each one of those points of engagement. Now, quick word on points of engagement and stuff. So there's 2 things here to consider whether that's important to you. One is what we call backlash, and that is when you put power down on the pedals, is how many degrees of free play do you feel before you feel like your drivetrain is engaged and you're away. Now, this is going to depend a bit on the gear ratio that you're in, the slackness in your chain, all that sort of thing. And how important it is to you very much depends on the type of rider you are and the type of riding that you do. So very technical riders, trials, sort of enduro, cross-country mountain biking, cyclocross, that sort of thing, when you put the power down, you want to go because you're trying to get over a rock step or do a little trick or whatever it is, points of engagement really, really do matter. But most roadies doesn't really matter that much at all. So that's worth thinking about. The other one is what we call kickback. Now, kickback is something that happens when your suspension compresses. You only really get it on full suspension bikes. And to be honest, I haven't experienced it on many modern full suspension bikes because the suspension design has kind of taken it into account. But that kickback happens when you compress the suspension and the chain comes tight, it can pull the cranks back towards you. And again, with a hub with more degrees of rotation, that kickback becomes more severe. So if you do have a bike where you experience kickback and it bothers you, then switching your hub up to something with fewer degrees of rotation is probably worth a while investment. But to be honest, I don't think it sort of features in most people's considerations these days. It's more about that, how many degrees of rotation before you take up the backlash, the slack, if you like. So yeah, you can upgrade these to the new EXP ones. It's about a £95 upgrade. You need a special tool for it as well if you're going to do it. And it comes with the 240. So if it's important, you'd probably be looking at the 240s, which are about 100 quid more. So there we go. And yeah, it's up to you whether you think that's important. I think I personally wouldn't use it as my buy-in choice. What I would use as my buy-in choice is the ease of maintenance versus the frequency of maintenance. And this, I think, is where these 2 hubs really, really differ. Now, if you saw the video, you can't argue. This is the easiest thing in the world to maintain. It took us 3 minutes to completely strip it down and rebuild it. Very, very few tools. Most home mechanics will be able to do this. The difference is it uses a weird size bearing. It's not the sort of bearing size that you could just walk into a hardware supplies, or even, you'd have to go shopping on the internet, and there's not a lot of choice. And when I say that, there's not a lot of aftermarket brands like SKF, FAG and NTN, etc. that make that bearing size. So that's worth thinking about. Now, frequency of maintenance. I do think these Hope hubs, even with their new Labyrinth seal, still have some issues. I don't think this is particularly great, and I do wonder why they're bothered, because on this side here is a completely exposed bearing, and on this side here is a completely exposed bearing as well. I can literally see the bearing seal, it's there, and I can literally see the bearing seal. So you could argue that's covered up by the lock ring and that's covered up by the disc lock ring, but in reality, if you're even remotely sort of jet washing or putting a high pressure hose anywhere near that, that's going to compromise that seal pretty quickly. Now, when these get wet, they do rust. The little pull springs in here are most the renowned thing. They just rust away and they just fall apart, and next thing you know, you've got a long walk home or hacking and bodging your way through the end of a ride. So ease of maintenance, this definitely wins in terms of complete and utter strip down. In terms of frequency of maintenance, I think this definitely has to win. Let me show you why. Now, these have been out for a while, so there's 101 videos on the internet about how these work. But same idea, there is a couple of end caps which pull off. And then the free hub just comes off pretty easily, just like this. And now you can start seeing the mechanism. So we have a spring here, have a spacer here. Now you can see this pink grease. This pink grease is pretty important. And now you can see the ratchets. So if you haven't seen before, that's very quickly how a DT Swiss ratchet system works. And there's those 36 teeth always engaged, but 10 degrees of movement in between. Now you have to use that special grease. That is really, really important. But when you come to doing Hope hubs, you can pretty much use, I tend to use a really good quality grease, because you don't want to use too much. And in fact, some people even will recommend using oil. I don't think it really matters that much. If you don't ride your bike in really horrible conditions and you really want that really loud, obnoxious noise, then go ahead and use like a mineral oil. But I'd say that I'd probably recommend using a good quality high performance grease in there, because that's going to work a whole lot better. And generally speaking, the more grease you use, the quieter it's going to get. There's like an optimum amount of grease, and it's not as much as you think. Go and check out the other video if you want to know more about that. Now, on the inside here is probably the Achilles heel of the DT Swiss system, because home mechanics, that's probably as far as you want to go. These are easy to replace. You can replace the bearings in here just as easily as the Hope ones. This is probably all you ever want to strip down and clean out. So this is just giving all this a meticulous clean and investing it in some special grease to service these at home. I probably wouldn't go that much further than that at home. Now, if you do, you can use a hammer, knock this out, same as the Hope, and this bearing here will come out. And you can actually replace that bearing. That one's actually quite easy to replace. You need the same overbearing kit that we showed you how to use in the other video. But the bearing here is a significantly different matter. There's a lock ring that holds it in place, and you have to use a special tool. Now, this is my favorite tool for doing this. DT Swiss make their own, but this one is significantly better. This is from a company called Elevation Labs, and it's been machined so that you can actually use it with a impact gun. I know that there'll be a ton of you out there right now going, oh, impact guns, oh, dangerous. But they're really, if you know what you're doing, they're not at all, and they work significantly better than either trying to rip the spokes out of your reel, wrestling it with it in a vise, or you've got a massive breaker bar on it. Don't break your back. It's not worth it. An impact gun is significantly better, and you can probably do this actually just handheld. See, easy. There is the little seal that comes out as well. There is that lock ring, and behind there is another level of weather sealing. So this little washer here actually seals that bearing in even further. So this is the bearing that's difficult to remove. Once that lock ring is off, again, it's just a case of turning the axle around and knocking it out, just the same as the Hope one. So, and they're just a 6902 bearing in there, so super easy. Putting it back together, it's just a case of making sure that is centered lock ring goes back. If you are doing it, these lock rings, where the groove is, it's fairly obvious, because if you put it in wrong, literally the hub won't go together. And that just screws down. Don't need to do this crazy tight, because I promise you, your pedaling action will make it plenty tight enough. Then there's this little seal here, and now these can actually be a bit of a pain to push down. You just get that seal down until it's flush with the outside of that hub. Persevere with that. It takes a bit of time, but it will press in quite happily. So then we add our springs and our ratchets. And at this point here, you need to apply the special grease. There's actually plenty on there as we go, so we can just get them located in. Don't forget the spacer, and then another spring, free hub body, and then our end caps. And we are done. So that is the question. Which one is easier? Because I think in terms of first stage maintenance, I think these are significantly easier. Most home mechanics will be able to do the essential maintenance on these. And because they're so well sealed on that first drive side bearing, I don't think you'll ever need to touch that really. When people come into the shop, we'll always replace all of the bearings, because when we have the tools, it'd be rude not to. For the price of a bearing in there, whilst we've got the hub apart, we'll normally just replace all of the bearings de facto. It's very rare that that one actually needs doing, whereas on the Hope, that bearing, I promise you, gets destroyed more than any other. And when it does, all the axles start to wobble, and that's when you start seeing that little steel ring that we talked about start to eat into the axle. So there we go. I would say if you're not keen on getting bearing kits and all that sort of stuff, but just want to maintain it, keep it clean, keep it working effectively, I would go for the DT Swiss 350, because first stage maintenance is super, super easy. If you really like to get into the nitty gritty of your bike maintenance and don't want to invest in all these tools, which these are crazy expensive, then I would probably go for the Hope Pro5s. If it was me, what would I ride? Well, I ride DT Swiss 350s on my road bike, as you know. On my mountain bike, I actually currently run this Shimano silent system, which I really, really like. I've had some issues with it, don't get me wrong, but I think I've solved those now. I think they've got that back together again. Like, the engagement points is absolutely lovely, and I love the fact that they're quiet. It's been a while since I've run Hope hubs on any of my mountain bikes, I have to say. Would I be swayed back with it with the Pro5? I don't think so, no. I think I'll probably still point at something else. But as always, the YouTube jury is the one to ask. And so over to you guys. If it's you, DT Swiss 350 versus Hope Pro5, where would you go?